We leveled things up over here.
Oh wait, I was gonna ask.
We
What
got
is
the
this?
double
Yeah.
cam setup. We got camera 1, camera 2. Really kick things up a bit.
Whoa. Oh, that's smart. So you can do like multiple cut, and like as you edit, it'll look like you have the two different camera angles.
We do things very differently and at a high level here at the PPC Den podcast.
Hell yeah, I love this. I need to adopt this. Are they the same camera on both
Two
sides
different
here?
cams, yes.
Love
One
it.
of my favorite YouTubers is a bassist. It's a music channel. It's like music/comedy channel.
Okay, I love the combo.
Music comedy. It's actually a niche on YouTube that I follow a lot. It's just like really talented musicians, but instead of just playing music, they're like making music and comedy. So like,
Okay.
one of my favorite ones, and if anyone else is also into this niche, I really like Davey504. But one time he had like this video contest where he's got like 10 million subscribers, and he had people submit video of themselves playing, and he was going to like pick the best one. And he gave every single person an award for some unique thing that they did. And like one guy set up like 3 cameras to record themselves playing, and he like gave them like the multicam award. And then like the next time he did this contest, someone had like 6 cameras, and it like got out of control. And I've always enjoyed that concept because it's like you get these like really dramatic cuts.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, no joke. That's really cool. Do you have to like be cognizant that you need to move and look at the other camera, or does this organically? Do you tend to look at both?
Believe it or not, Shane, this is the inaugural episode of this particular multicam setup. Yeah,
I love this. I'm honored.
It's a big deal.
I'm honored.
And speaking of video creatives on paid media on Amazon, I will tell you my perception of the word on the street when it comes to video.
Okay.
Sponsored brand video ads, for example. My take, and I believe this to be mostly true, and I have a hypothesis, which I think you've already pre-validated, which is when sponsored brand video and the video came out in general on Amazon, there was a really nice period of early mover advantage because Amazon was completely static images all over the place. And then you had video options. The people that tapped into video early, and I think the early mover advantage for business online is actually a really big window. I would say like the first year of sponsored brand video, people were just like shooting half-court shots without looking, getting a good low ACOS. It was really easy for them to do it. And then over time, everyone started talking like video is so great. Video became a little bit crowded. Amazon only has so much inventory for video, meaning, maybe you'll see one, sometimes I'll search and see 2 videos on a search result page, but there's not nearly as many ad slots for video as there are for static images. So over time, it became a crowned ad position, and is now expensive. People generally today say they struggle with it, or it's too expensive. I heard someone the other day say they're not even bothering with sponsored brand video because it's just too expensive now. And is the answer that no one's investing in creative?
Yes. I would, to hit it right on the head. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think everything you just said is also correct. I mean, we do this analysis all the time at Noble of looking at even just average cost per clicks across the same exact keyword sets in sponsored brands and sponsored products. And sponsored brands typically is always higher. But to your point, and this is what we alluded to before we hit record, is getting hyper-focused in those videos. And I don't want to call out a specific brand, but I'll just give you like a high-level example. Let's say a brand who sells a beverage pays a ton of money to create a Super Bowl commercial. Well, they pay all this money to make that video. God knows how much it costs. So then they tend to take that video and just plaster it across their Amazon PPC, across every single possible keyword search that they would think that video is applicable to. What does that do, in my opinion, and from the data I've seen? People just get used to seeing the video, and they get used to it. It burns out. It becomes something that people aren't really converting off of. On the flip side, if you do the research in using something like Ad Badger to really understand specifically what types of keywords hyper focused within a specific subcategory and create video content that specifically hits that in the first 3 to 5 seconds, there's this subliminal thing that I believe happens with consumers searching on site where you search high protein snack, and then the first thing you see is a video that the first thing is gravitating to you, a very, very, beautiful video that hits on high protein snack. No matter what it is, whether it's something you want or don't want, if the video quality and the content is good enough, I think what we're seeing already early data is the click-through rates are skyrocketing. So you're at least getting someone there. So then the question is, okay, is your product the right product for that keyword, and will you convert? So a long-winded way to say, yes, I think content's everything when it comes to that, and which is why a lot of these things that are happening on the AI side are just exciting, in my opinion, because it's in the past, creating that content has been cumbersome, it's expensive, and depending on if you're on the brand side or the agency side, it's just a high barrier to entry. You can spend all this time, energy, resources to then get a video that just doesn't work. And so then what happens? Do you go pay more to make another video? Most brands would probably say, no, let's just can it and let's give up on this. With AI, it's scalable and it's way cheaper. So you can test 5, 6, 7, 8 iterations of something for half the price and triple down.
I remember I attended a talk this was probably 6 or 7 years ago by the guy who did the Squatty Potty commercial.
Oh,
if you remember the Squatty Potty commercial, was a unicorn pooping rainbows using a Squatty Potty.
Yes,
and
I remember this.
I just remember it was one of the most renowned that's as high quality video as you can get. You had lots of creative people thinking of it. You had a full on set, people making a unicorn doll to workable, take a rainbow poop, all of this stuff, and it was so memorable. You see a lot of this stuff out there, and I feel like some brands do think it's binary. I either have to invest 20, 30, 40 grand on a video ad and maybe it'll convert, maybe it'll be good for my brand, or I'm just not going to do, I'm not going to compete after that video slot. It's expensive anyway. And there's actually a spectrum. There's a lot that you can do in that range. It doesn't need to be a Super Bowl commercial. It doesn't need to be hyper, creative, talk to the zeitgeist of society. There's a ground that's accessible to a lot of brands. So I'm always interested by what people mean when they say if the video is good. So would you say that currently there's a barrier to entry these days where maybe you can get away with literally just having the product in a video on a white background scroll across the screen? If you have the most simple rudimentary video possible, which is no moving image, nothing actually was recorded. It's not actually a video. It's more like a slideshow of the product.
Mm-hmm. Like a stop motion.
Right. Versus the hyper creative Super Bowl ad. Where do you see this spectrum where you would say most brands should be going after? Are we looking at something that's the slideshow? Do they have to get totally creative? Where are you seeing a sweet spot right now?
That's a great question. The sweet spot, I think, and again, a little bias maybe in this answer, given what I'm seeing work really well and where I think brands have a lot of opportunity. When I said AI tools, a lot of that, what that looks like in that spectrum, Mike, is now with the technology that's available and what we're doing, you're able to take, all you need is flat packaging files. So basically take a flat packaging file, whatever product you sell, you render it. So you actually create a 3D render. And then the technology now that's available, you can create these 3D worlds. So you actually get to be, I would say, on that spectrum that you just laid out, you're actually closer on the end of the spectrum to the full-blown production video at the cost of the low-end spectrum.
Awesome.
And what's remarkable about that is you love to use this example of a brand new brand. My background was in protein bars at RX Bar. So let's use that as an example. If you're launching a brand new protein bar, you could, at a very cheap price, go out and make one of those stop motion videos. Probably hundreds, if not a couple $1,000s to make something like that. Is it as gravitating? Is it as validating to a consumer of this new brand? Probably not. Are you going to want to spend what you just said, 30, 40,000 on this really highly produced? You need to hire actors and you get an Airbnb and like shoot this lifestyle video.
Squatty Potty commercial, by the way, 250 grand to make it.
Which is wild, right? And I mean, would love to understand what the ROI was on that video if they have that tracked. That's insane to me now, knowing that price.
It said they garnered 100 million views. Like it like transcended just Amazon product ad video.
Okay.
It says that when that video went viral, their sales went 600% the following year. It's pretty wild. So like,
that might have worked then, right? Which
lucky
I think then my question, well, my question is always like, that's the
outlier. Yeah.
How many people have spent that money and it didn't do shit?
I hear all the time people get pitched like $20,000, $50,000 videos.
I think that is the norm. But what's interesting, and I hope this podcast ages well. I mean, I'm genuinely a big believer in this AI movement.
Yeah, let's talk about
one of the things that's going to happen. Well, one of the things that I think we'll fast forward a couple of years from now and look back on is these videos that you're talking about in that price range. I just don't think they're going to be as necessary. I don't think brands are going to do them because what you can do now with AI video, what I was just walking through, the brand new protein bar example that I was alluding to, that's a good example of now the quality of 3D video you can make and call out. Let's just say this brand is going to be clean ingredients. Let's hit on all the big ones. It's like gluten-free, dairy-free, it hits on all the major diet tribe type keywords. You can make a 20-second 3D rendered AI video that explains that our product has all of this, us versus them. You can do that in 20 seconds. It looks unbelievable, super high quality. And for a brand who maybe just launched, all they've done so far is let's say they have 30 Vine reviews. That's it. They basically have not sold anything on Amazon yet. You can launch day one with that video. And to the average consumer, even though you don't have the reviews, even though you're brand new, you already level up in validity of, I'm a legitimate brand, which I think in the past was always a huge barrier to entry with at least the brands I worked with that were brand new. Of their content was so far behind that us trying to competitively target other brands or even just category targets without any type of video content like that, even though it's expensive in the early days, I do think it's I use this like validity point a lot, where if you're new and young and you don't have the reviews to go up against some of the big guys in the category, these videos can kind of cut past what consumers think is a valid product on Amazon, especially if you're premium. Like if you're premium and you're new, I would argue some of this video content is really what's going to move the needle and give you a chance to have a successful Amazon business.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that to be true. Like having good branding out of the gate that is even beyond just a static image is really impactful. So yeah, the video AI video generation is really fascinating. Stepping outside the Amazon world, my understanding of it is like you're going to be able to go to your Disney Plus account in the future and be like, I want to watch The Little Mermaid, but except instead of the Caribbean, I want it based in Hawaii. And then like it'll craft everything to it. Or like I want to watch Game of Thrones, except everyone has an Australian accent. It'll produce it for you, like right there on the fly, generated for you, like full on worlds that can be customized. Like you go to Netflix and you'll just type in what you feel like watching, like make a show that's similar to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but make it set in Miami and, XYZ other prompt. And like, it'll just make the series for you right then and there. So it's like, I don't think we're far away from that reality. It's overwhelming to think like that at that scale. So like the scale that we're talking about, like building a product featurette is actually like well within the grasp of almost where we're at and like where we're going to be in like a year from now or so. So where are you in the stage of testing this? Like, are you already rocking with this stuff? Are you in the research phase?
We're rocking with it. So we dove into this really deep about 10 months ago. We tested, I think it was 4 or 5 different AI video companies. The crazy thing about this space as well, Mike, is even there's new ones popping up constantly. Like, it's just this never ending, like it's impossible to keep up with all of the new technology within AI, which is also kind of crazy. So we really tried to get to into the weeds of, okay, what companies do we feel like are at a place that is worth us leaning into with our clients? We actually met the co-founders of these companies and try to really understand like where they're going as well. And then we decided to work with a couple to at a really like founder level to say, hey, we have a book of business that we're going to continue growing. These are all brands that are really going to be big players in their spaces. So this could be a great partnership in an informal way to try to work together and create, the best of the best with AI content. And then now we're about 2.5 months into actually having videos for clients completed and launched and running on Amazon. So we actually got our very first video up and live 2 days before Prime Day. So we're fully in the weeds. It's a big part of my weekly process now too. We're running a lot of A/B tests, and I alluded to that. The beauty of a lot of this is for a couple brands, we came up with, let's say, a concept A, which is whether it's from a flavor perspective, most of it's a use case perspective to get started. I will go back to like a protein bar. Let's say it was gluten-free. And so we can then take, at a fraction of the price, we can take a concept. Let's say when I say concept, let's just say how this video looks in general. We can take this product that maybe the main focus is to be gluten-free, but let's say it also checks the box for keto. We can take the same video that's really focused around gluten-free products, make some pivots in that video and the concept, whether it's the text, whether it's the way the product comes in, just little things that make tweaks. For now we're talking hundreds of dollars, and it's a whole new video. And so now we're testing it, like to give you an in the weeds example, video 1 is only showing up when people search gluten-free protein bar, gluten-free XYZ. The other video, which was a couple $100, is now only showing up when you search keto-related keywords.
That's really cool.
So now we have these two completely different consumers who are seeing essentially a similar concept with some slight tweaks. And for the brand's perspective, the total investment was so much less than it would have been to go make 2 different videos. And the ROI is coming back within weeks because now we're also hyper-focused on those. So I think the key takeaway for anyone listening today is not only is it more efficient from just a cost perspective, like we're able to make more videos at a lower cost by using AI technology, but also because cost per clicks are more expensive on video, you don't have as much playground usually to test. Like I think that's always been my challenge is we know video conversion rates can be there, but if cost per clicks are too high, especially in food and beverage where I play a lot, you just don't have the margin to go get enough clicks to say, hey, Mike, I can bet if we get 10x more clicks on this, the conversion rate's going to be high enough. The A cost will be low enough for us to keep this as a running campaign. When we're hyper focused, we can learn pretty quick, right? Like to give everyone an example, if this video is all about gluten-free and we get 100 clicks that are all related to gluten-free protein bars and we're not converting, well, I can pretty strongly say no matter what the cost per click is going to change to, if our rates of conversion are not high enough, there's a pretty good chance this video, we should probably kill it and pivot to something else. So we're learning that quickly. Like instead of, again, like peanut butter spreading this video across a lot of different places and having to make some assumptions on whether it's the content, is it what we're targeting, like what's the problem or the win here, we're kind of able to cut down on all of that and make decisions a lot faster. So it's cool too to see we already have a brand where the first video worked really well. And so now they're taking, okay, here's, component B and C that work really well for this brand in other places. And we're making new videos for that. And again, I really think for brands that can lean into this, there's no reason you wouldn't want to have 20, 30 videos in a year, 2 years from now, that just keep going down lower and lower as you figure out more and more very like specific things that work for your product. It's so cool to me because I think over time, if this happens, which I'm betting it will, I think when you go on Amazon, you're gonna see a lot less of these like general here I am brand XYZ. You're gonna start to really be able to, almost like AI does today. Like when you search for something within ChatGPT, it really like it takes your information that you've already shared with ChatGPT, as well as what it's finding on the internet. It gives you a personalized answer. And I think Amazon has a chance of almost starting to become that, even from our side, right? Because like instead of us just plastering a video that we put everywhere, you're only going to see the stuff that is exactly what you searched.
I love it. Like that's always been the challenge with creative, in the sense of, let's say you're selling some dog product and you might have all these different, you've got like the Chihuahua sized version, you've got the Great Dane version, and everything in between. You got a couple different sizes. You've got like a more masculine one, a more feminine one. You've got like all these different colors. You've got like state themed, college sports team themed one. You have all of these different products. So when you historically would go to create a video for these, you would try to get as most bang for your buck, which is like, let me try to encompass all of the college stuff, as well. I'll display a couple colleges in there and I'll just serve it up as much as I can. And then you would sort of look at that and be like, okay, like these Southern colleges have a lot of traction. I'm going to like create a Southern video and like serve it geographically to those Southern states. But if you have that process, which takes weeks or months, shortcutted right away, where you can say like, okay, like let's get a video for the German Shepherd one. Let's get a video for the Golden Retriever one. Let's get a video for the Chihuahua one, because I know those are, different, and you can begin to customize creative so much faster than you would instead of like launching with a standard one and then customizing over time. You can customize theoretically out of the gate for not that much extra lift in the beginning of work. So that's really fascinating. And I would say like the agencies that I'm really impressed with these days are the ones who have sort of realized that like finding a way to manage the technical optimization really efficiently so that you can dedicate more time towards the creative optimization is really valuable. So like I'd love what you're doing too with, because like you haven't really mentioned like sponsored brand video bids or sponsored brand video search term management. It's like you find a way to optimize those efficiently that you can spend more time on creative, and it's really like an unfair advantage, I would say. Like if you can garner a double click-through rate versus your competition, you're going to have a really good time. Like if a term gets searched 10,000 times a month and like somebody else has a 1% click-through rate and you have a 5% click-through rate, you can get 5 more clicks for like a high value term through using creative. You don't have to bid much more. You can bid an appropriate amount and like you can just garner that many more clicks. Like your like algorithmically, Amazon wants that. Like Amazon wants people to create ads that get a lot of clicks and a lot of engagement and lead to a sale faster than other people who don't. I think it's one of the, most underrated ways to optimize, which is like get your click-through rate up, get your engagement up. So I absolutely love that.
It's funny you hit on the dog treats because, again, a lot of what I focus on is food and beverage. So when you said that, what's wild even, Mike, when you think about colleges or the schools, that is such a great example of you could make a video in an incredibly cheap way that hits on everyone. So like, let's say it's University of Georgia.
Yeah.
You can make a video so easily that's just about the University of Georgia and just hits on that item and pitch it against people who are only searching things about the University of Georgia or dogs and whatever. That's a great example of, in the past, how would you create that content? It'd be difficult.
Maybe you go regionals.
Yeah. I mean, that's another great example for sure. But I do totally agree. The conversion rate piece is wild to see. I've seen from a general branded video to some of these AI videos already, anywhere from 5 to 10x the conversion rates. Like we're talking like multiples higher in conversion rates. And I really do think it's because we're hitting people who are searching exactly what we're targeting in the video. And it's funny that the videos that I've been talking about, I've really been focused on like what's in the product, or like what is the product, what's the diet type, or those types of things. The other thing that's really interesting that I haven't mentioned is like competitively what you can do. So let's use an example of these like potato chips. Let's say if you look at the potato chip category today, dominated by Frito-Lay, dominated by the big chip companies, right? And they have tons and tons of variety packs and SKUs. Well, if you're like a healthier snack brand that wants to launch a product, you could launch with AI too. There's some really cool, even like templatized things that are even cheaper, like an us versus them type of video where you could target a specific competitor of yours if that's the type of marketing you're okay as a brand to leverage. But imagine, you have a picture of what looks very obviously would be a Frito-Lay bag, just a regular yellow bag of potato chips, I'm envisioning. And whatever your product is that you're saying, hey, mine's better. And it very quickly doesn't call them out, but you can tell what the image roughly is, right? You've seen those before where it's like the brand's not there, but you know exactly what the product is because it's a well-known brand. And you have all these call outs that you can swap in and out with AI very quickly that are like, this is why we're better than them. And then you can launch that just against that product. So think about like at scale, you could have this whole set of competitors even where someone goes to search those and now they see your video right away. And if you're a consumer who was wanting that and you didn't know this new brand exists, this type of video content you can tweak and evolve and change things so fast that, I think it's that whole piece, whether it's geographies, your school example, be able to swap in key components of products, all that stuff with the AI technology now is incredibly scalable. And as a brand, as any brand that's trying to sell anything, I genuinely think this is an area where you should learn more about because it's gonna quickly become the norm, I think.
Let's talk a little bit about types of videos because you sort of mentioned it here, like how these things get built. I saw controversy over the last few months of like Joe Rogan saying words with a product on the screen that he didn't actually, like it was AI generated. It had Joe Rogan endorsing some supplement, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think it was like Joe Rogan and like Andrew Huberman talking about some supplement, like specific supplement brand
that they weren't even talking about.
I saw another one with Gordon Ramsay talking about some pans that he loves to use, and he's in the kitchen using pans. Also not him.
Wow.
I also saw some live streamer, I forget how many views he had at his peak, but like he deep faked a live of Elon Musk, like pitching something as well, like some crypto thing. So like we have those videos that I picture. We have videos of like sort of like more templated, I would wager, of like, put your product image, we're going to slide it across the screen. Like, what are your 3 features? We're going to slide that across the screen, sort of like in a templated way that you don't need to be a video editor to use, right? Like those video templates have existed for some time where you need to pump it into like Adobe Premiere and manipulate it. So like what kinds of videos are you able to create? And if you want to, and if you feel comfortable name dropping any of the tools that you're using, like, I mean, I as you were talking, I was doing a search. There's like a bunch of them. It's like a hot time.
Yeah, and they're. I'm telling you, there's new ones every week. It's constant.
You mentioned being able to talk to the founder or co-founder of these things. Like a lot of times these are startups and they're like incredibly hungry to get their first like 1,000 customers. So like you can talk to them. I talked to one guy about like his AI startup. He's like, looking for beta testers. And then like 4 weeks later, he like raised like $150 million. And I was like, oh wow, he was moving fast.
There's a ton of money getting deployed in here, no doubt about it. I mean, like the amount of fundraising, as many food and beverage brands that are hard pressed to get money right now, AI is not an area where there's any issue raising capital right now. So great question. I would bucket those as very different versions of AI. The ones where you're seeing people say and do things that's not actually them. The deep fakes, that personally I have not played a lot with. I don't have a big use case for it. I think that is, it's interesting. We both use Riverside for our podcast. I know they've launched something where I can basically now, the amount of audio that I've uploaded, I can just type in a podcast and it'll sound like my voice. I haven't played with it yet, but it's happening everywhere. And so that stuff, I think over time, there's going to have to be a way where they figure out, like, I mean, because like otherwise, if someone doesn't figure out a way to like watermark those or figure out a way to make them valid, I mean, it's weird to think because you think affiliate marketing could get really screwed up, or even for like the Rogans, like how do you keep getting paid if people can just fake it? On the flip side, there's a lot of good programs. I would argue there's a few great ones. Adobe has a couple different things that I play with for imagery for sure. They have Firefly, I believe is what we use, what's called. That was one that I don't know the founders, obviously. That's an Adobe product, but that's a great one to just get in and play with. That's got generative AI, which is you can basically prompt it. You can say what you were talking about earlier, which is put put someone or something, a product, a physical thing in this looking like that, and it'll create it for you. So even honestly, from an imagery perspective, you can tweak things with some of those tools. Some of them are free. There's still a lot of free tools out there. Some of the video ones that I love to talk about, and I know the team over here, Savvy is a great platform, and that's one we do work with closely. Those guys are awesome. David Chang over there is one of the co-founders. He's shout out to him if he ever listens to this. He's just a great human in general. They're a good example of, Mike, they were an agency doing real life video for big brands. Think like Netflix. They were doing like all of these in-person shoots, and they saw this coming, and they decided to launch their own company where they're helping people create videos. So we do work with them. They're great. They have like cheaper templatized things, and then we actually work with their internal team on some video production as well. They're a great one. There's honestly so many, but I call out Savvy because those guys, I've learned a lot from them over the years. So they're a great one. I would tell you, if you're looking for like an intro option, between them and Adobe, those are probably the two places I'd push people to learn and play. You can do a lot of damage in those two just to kind of figure it out and get a feel for what's available. And then I wouldn't say we don't use this specifically within our business, but anyone that's interested in AI, whether it's video or just AI in general, like my default browser now is ChatGPT. I'm in it all day. So I always push people to try that. They have imagery and video connections you can have. I think of all of this video AI, just call that a category, whether you're someone who's in the business of it, like you and I might be, or you're just a general consumer, or you own a brand or a product. I'm a big believer that just start using this stuff on a daily basis, and you'll just think of little things of like, oh, I should use ChatGPT instead of Google, and see what happens. And you start to go down a rabbit hole of finding other AI platforms, different AI services. That was a long-winded way of explaining my in-depth. I'm obsessed with AI right now. But yeah, those are great platforms to start with. Like I said, Savvy, Adobe, those are really good ones that I would say are user-friendly. And then if you want to get more serious, you can go down a rabbit hole of different ones. Unreal Engine is probably one you've heard of. That one is a paid AI. That one is actually, I would say, for folks on Amazon and PPC, that's too graduated. Like I would argue not yet. They don't have their options right now are much more. You'll have like actual video production houses for movies using Unreal Engine. That's one where, like what Mike framed up a few minutes ago, where you could put a whole prompt of like, this is a show or a movie I want to see, and they can create like basically a movie from that. So I would put them at least from what my understanding, at the forefront of what's possible right now. And then you have things like, I wouldn't necessarily put them on the other end of the spectrum, but maybe more in the middle, where you have something like a Savvy, where they're trying to work more with brands and products to make content. Something like a Savvy is interesting too, maybe a little outside of Amazon, but anyone that's also trying to do UGC content, they're involved in that. If you just Google or ChatGPT, UGC AI video.
I've seen that.
There's a ton of those as well, because I know, and this is something I'd be curious to know if you've delved into, the TikTok Amazon connection that's coming soon. That news that dropped a few weeks ago was big news, I know, for our agency, because that could change the whole funnel of video advertising. If you can get some of this even lower touch UGC content that typically is even cheaper to then drive to Amazon. That's where, transparently, my head has
Big
also
time.
started to take up some real
Big
estate.
time. I mean, there's, I feel like China, in some regards, with their social e-commerce, is a little bit ahead of the US's social e-commerce, in the sense of my understanding is that there's some, like, you don't buy anything unless you like you see it in like whatever their version of TikTok is first. And it's sort of like, that's a search engine. Like, they want to see people using it and talking about it first before they buy anything. And there's like just professional, just like we have influencers, there's just like armies. Like, so like large companies will hire armies of influencers to create content for them. Yeah. So bring it back to Amazon. I do think it's really valuable to, customize video. There's like real tangible, like down to earth, better click-through rates, better conversion rates by moving a lot faster with video and putting creative optimization as part of an optimization stack. And because of some of the new video tools, you're able to iterate a lot faster, which is really cool. So I think this is an incredible thing that people should research more. And I've heard a lot of like, I can often tell like if an agency is really like on it, if they're like ahead of the curve in general, if like they mentioned like, oh, like creative optimization on Amazon is becoming more and more valuable. Creative optimization in general is becoming more and more valuable. This is true a couple of years ago on like meta advertising, where like, okay, like meta advertising, the technical, it's like becoming easier to advertise, like the technical setup. So where does your time and attention go to? It should go towards the creative optimization. So it's like getting really good there, because the difference between, again, serving 1,000 people something and getting 10 people or 100 people to click on it is like really impactful for a company. Because the cost per click, cost per click on those two things is going to be different. The company who's able to get a 10 times click-through rate is going to pay less than the other company who's trying to get their click-through rate up. So it's pretty valuable there. So that's great.
I would agree. And one thing that I'm curious from your perspective, Mike, because I hit on my perspective. You definitely have worked with products and brands, in other categories than maybe I'm really accustomed to. Do you notice over time, has sponsored brand video advertising, the average cost per click, has that continued to go up for you in the categories you play in? Yeah. Okay. So it's continuing to be a more and more expensive place to play.
Yeah. And I would say in more and more industries, more and more niches, it's getting more and more expensive, to the point where people, like I mentioned, I've talked to several marketers just in the last month, say they've become like disheartened by sponsored brand video because it feels like, oh man, this used to be a cakewalk and now it's not. And like the biggest gear that you can turn on that is of course the creative, and like you don't have access to the creative typically. So there's a really strong argument for doing what you're doing, which is jumping in to the creative side.
That's why we did it. I mean, the analogy I use is we felt like we sat in this dead space in the middle where, especially if you work with brands who are younger, scrappier, maybe they only have a founder or a co-founder and a couple people, man, if I'm over here, the Amazon agency, and I'm like, hey, I really need this video creative and I don't know what it's going to do, but I'm really confident that it's going to work. Well, where does that fall on the to-do list of a founder who's got 5 million other things that they're trying to do? Probably pretty low. And to my earlier point, then if they do end up paying for it and going through the motion of getting it to you and it doesn't work very well, now it's kind of a concept that's dead in the water, I think.
Can I ask a question about the way that you've been using this video creation with your clients, which is basically like, there's creative agencies that go to people and say, hey, this is our video package, 15,000 for this, 30,000 for that. This is what you get. They're going to record something in a studio somewhere. Versus, hey, we can go down this video optimization path using AI technology. Like, I'm curious how clients have reacted to it. I'm curious, like, how you incorporate that into your fees. Like, there's still work that needs to get done. Like, you are not just going and typing something in and getting the first thing back, which I think is a huge pet peeve of mine, where people just like copy and paste ChatGPT. And it's like, you got to work with it. You got to like actually get it to a point where it's like actually great. Like it's typically not great 100%. Out of the gate. So like there's still a degree of work. And I'm curious how what are the economics of that with your clients? Like, are you charging per video? Like, imagine, let's take the college thing. Like, imagine you did have it where it's just like, oh, like we can customize this for every single college or 50 colleges. like
Mhm.
how do you think about the economics of that? Like if someone's listening, like whether they're a brand and they're just like, how am I supposed to invest in this? Like what kind of ROI should I be thinking of when this comes into play?
Great question. And I know we didn't really get into probably the root of our agency, but I would tell you at the highest level, what makes us different is we focus on profitability and scaling profitably. And a big component of that is inclusive of our fees and advertising dollars, making sure a brand is actually making money. I was on the brand side for so long, and I always felt like that was a big gap, was this like full understanding. So we rolled that into this. And the best way to describe the economics of how this works for our clients is, first and foremost, the process, we're definitely still ironing out. It's not perfect. What I will say is, for the clients that have been kindly enough to lean in with us in the early days of this, we're trying to take care of them as best we can. We're probably more involved in iterations and making the changes than I think a scalable solution will look like in a couple of years from now for us. But we're also very thankful that they're willing to lean in and do it with us. So we're trying to make sure like they're getting the best possible outcome from a video perspective. From a true economics perspective, we're not rolling it into like our general fee structure for managing their Amazon. Reason is this is a new incurred cost for us. The way to think about it in your example with the schools would be typically with a lot of these AI engines, I'll call them, the real big cost for the person creating the video is really the rendering. Like that first render of an item is actually where a lot of the cost comes in, because that's where you're you're using a lot of computing power to create a 3D render. And it's funny enough, a lot of these AI companies that are making videos now, I don't think they even realize, and we've been telling a couple of them this, how many brands don't even have 3D renders. And when they go pay someone to make a 3D render, how expensive it is, they could just do that. That could be a whole business, is like just sell 3D rendering software or like just the output. So there's a lot you can do there. Even if you go to some of these ones I've mentioned, like you can just get 3D renders done for a fraction of the price of what it would cost to go to like a freelancer to make a 3D render. So the economics work a little bit like this. We like to take a project. So like, let's use that college example. If you were to make one video, getting a render done, getting the 3D universe created, getting all the text iterations, the 3D motion, because basically one of the other pieces of this is the more 3D motion, and funny enough, kind of like the camera conversation we had at the beginning, the more you're cutting to different angles, different views, different scenery, more time and energy goes into it, but it looks way better post-production versus what you said at the very beginning of the podcast where you just had like a white background and you have product flow in. So we do try to layer that in, and that's like a higher quality output 3D video. So if you do one video, the price for that video is going to be more expensive than, let's say, if you did 5 videos. Because what happens is the first video is actually like the legwork of a lot of the heavy lifting from a cost perspective. And then making the iterations for 4 other different assets becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So the economics, the way it works with brands we've worked with so far, let's say you do one video and then you want to have 3 other iterations. Well, now the price per video is going to be a lot lower. And we kind of have this like waterfall we show them where it's like, if we do 5 videos together, 6 videos together, the price goes from X to, 0.75X per video to 0.5X per video. And we actually just pass that along to them. The key thing that we're trying to do, the AI video production for us, there's some time, there's some energy. So there's inevitably some margin we need there just to pay for that for us. But we're not treating this as a internal revenue driving component necessarily. Because really, at the end of the day, especially the brands we work with on Amazon that are going to use these, our long-term vision is it's going to benefit all of us if we can get this content created. So there's a little bit of margin there. So we have a little bit that we charge to just like handle this, get it all done properly, and ultimately like getting the finished product. But really, at the end of the day, like where the financial piece comes out is the brands are getting it as close as they can to the prices if they knew how to do this stuff. And then we'll all reap the benefits if it works on Amazon. It's kind of our long-term vision. So it's a little bit, it's not necessarily money today. It's money hopefully all of us make tomorrow by having really high quality video in the future, if that makes sense.
Well, Shane, I think this is a important topic that anyone doing any marketing for e-commerce on Amazon or off Amazon needs to be aware of and start thinking about. And I would also tell people to, like, there is no curve, meaning like what you mentioned that you started 10 months ago, I'd argue ahead of the curve. But at the same time too, like starting, as the saying goes, best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So it's like, there's definitely value in exploring this. So I just want to say thank you so much for raising awareness to the people listening. Really appreciate it. If someone wants to follow you and learn more about what you are doing in the world of Amazon, where can people find you?
Yeah, appreciate that. Shane.m.white is my Instagram. I don't put a ton on there, but that's a good place to kind of get a hold of me. Shane White on LinkedIn is another one. And then if you want to learn more about what we're doing with Amazon advertising and Amazon in general, Nobul, Nobul partners.com. You can find everything we do there, which is, we're a full service, profitable growth Amazon agency. That's us. So easy to find.
Thank you so much, Shane. Appreciate it. Hope to have you back on the show in a couple months. And everyone else, see you next week here on the PPC Den podcast.